So today I want to show you how to make a really rustic ciambelle. And these are rolls or breads that look just like bagels, and we're actually going to cook them that way. So you want to start with, again, some yeast. Fresh yeast. This is about a teaspoon of yeast that I'm just going to dissolve in 1 1/4 cups of warm water, about 110 to 115 degrees. And you need to let that sit around and do something called proofing. And proofing means that the yeast starts to look chalky. That's how you know that it is active. And another way to tell is make sure when you buy dried yeast, you look on the package or on the jar to make sure that that yeast has an expiration date that tells you that it has not expired. Now we've got to do this in the old fontana. You see? We don't even need to use a bowl. So about 5 cups of flour on a work surface. And we want to do this exactly the way we would do pasta, or if you are in the old traditional vein of making bread the way the Italians make it at home, this is what you would do. So now we could put our yeast mixture right in the center of the fontana. And then we want to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil goes in. A little bit of salt, about 1.5 teaspoons, and white wine. So here are anise seeds, you see? Just like that, and they have that licorice flavor. You could put them in now, just like that, whole, or you could put them in a grinder and just grind them up. Now here's a neat little trick I learned from somebody. Once you grind them, turn it over when you're just about done, and everything will fall into the cap. Wow, I learned something new. So now we put in some anise seed, and if you don't like this, just leave it out. Okay, now we have everything we need right here, and the only other thing we need now is a pair of hands. So let's mix all of that together. So starting on the inside of the fontana, you want to bring some of the flour into the center. And the worst thing that could happen here is that you would break the wall, and then all of this liquid would go on your shoes. So bring the flour in until you have a mixture that's not going to go anywhere, and then you can just get your hands into it and start mixing in the rest of the flour. So now I'm going to sweep up the rest of my flour with my bench knife and get this all together. This should take about 5 cups of flour. If you need to use a little bit more, then you just add it a little bit at a time. But as you continue to go, keep all of the flour in the center. And remember, when you're doing this, you're concentrating on this age-old tradition, so you're not going to be answering the phone. And you want to start kneading now so that you have a nice smooth ball of dough. You could also do this in a bowl. You could do it in a food processor. You could do it in a stand mixer. Knead with this part of your hand so that you're pushing away with your palm and you're turning the dough in a clockwise motion. We don't want to make a stiff dough here, and that's the mistake that a lot of people make. They think that the dough has to absolutely slide off their hands, and it doesn't. It just needs to be slightly tacky on your hands. Looks good to me. Okay, so now we want to divide this up into 4 pieces. If you want to make smaller ones, you can make these even smaller. Work with 1 piece at a time. Now, let me show you a few little tricks. You can do this the regular way of taking a piece of this dough and just rolling it under the palm of your hand, you know, just like this, creating a long rope, not too long, creating a rope effect. Just going under the palm of your hand like so. And then bringing the two ends together, just like that, pinching those two ends together to form a ring, a circle. Put one end. That's one way to do it. Here's another way to do it. Take it and round it as if you were making a small roll. What I'm doing here is taking the dough from the outside and pinching it right to the center. You see that? This is called skinning the dough. And you rotate the dough, again, clockwise, bringing the outside piece over into the center. Then you can turn it over, and to get that nice round shape, you just burrow into the center with your finger, you see, just like that. Then you can just stretch it. And that gives you a perfect round. I mean, these are supposed to be rustic, but there is a perfect round. So that's a round one. You don't like that shape? How about we do a braid? So let's take a piece of dough, cut it in half. Again, make that rope. And here's our second one. We'll make a two braid. And then take your two pieces of dough and just pinch them. Cross them over at the end. Pinch them. And then bring it over and twist it, just like that. Then take those two ends and twist them together, pinching them together so that they hold, because these are going to boil in the water and we don't want them to come apart. And now these rise for 30 minutes, covered. And now what we can do is put them in boiling water. So you have a big pot of boiling water ready. And depending how large your pot is, you may have to do one or two of them at a time. You pick them up, put them right in the water. So you let them cook for a few minutes, just until they come to the top of the water. And then you want to have ready a cloth-lined baking dish. Here's one that I did earlier that I had in the water. Couldn't wait for you to come over, so I started ahead of time. And you just leave them on the sheet because you want that excess moisture off of them. Then, when they do rise, you can take a scoop. Is this gorgeous or what? Take it out and let it cool. Meanwhile, you get ready a parchment-lined baking sheet. This is parchment paper. This is how you buy parchment paper. You can find it in your grocery store. You can find it in a bake shop. Comes in a roll, and it helps to prevent burning. So our oven is on at 375 degrees. Then when these are cool, you take them and you put them on the parchment-lined sheet. Now at 375, you're going to cook these for about 15 or 20 minutes. Just depends. And here's the last one going on. I told you they'd look ugly, but they're going to look great when they come out of the oven. 375 degrees, preheated, goes in the oven. They're wonderful. Yes, they remind me of chewy, chewy bagels. And you know what? Ooh, they're a little hot, but let me just break into, I want you to listen to this. Did you hear that? And look at how beautiful that crumb is. And let me tell you something. They're very chewy.